You know, when you see depictions of freedom, when you look at, I don't know, television, like public service announcements or things like that, talking about freedom and how important freedom is to people, the typical depictions that you see are of people dancing. You know, you see people dancing out in the sun or singing or, doing things like that. Is that really freedom? And if it is, then Russia is a free country, because I assure you folks right now, please believe me when I say there's no shortage of dancing here in Russia. There are dance clubs all over downtown St. Petersburg. Every night you can go to a dance club and listen to loud music and dance all night if you feel like it. There's plenty of nightclubs, plenty of dancing here. Rock music, rock music is something that's sort of associated with freedom as well. And it may be a uniquely American music. Rock and roll may have originated in the United States, but today it's played all over the world. There's rock and roll here in Russia. I hear it all the time, played on the radio. They play it at shopping centers. It's not banned or prohibited or censored in any way. There's rock music, there's heavy metal, there's hip hop, there's every kind of music you can think of, every kind of media you could think of, and it's not. Russia's actually pretty good on censorship. I read an article the other day that some people are saying that books about or written by Stalin should be banned in Russia, and some people are saying it's madness that you can actually buy something that was written by Stalin here in present-day Russia. And whenever I think about that, of course, I'm reminded of the fairly obvious parallel with what Germany has done with Nazism. And of course, if you go to Germany, it's you cannot buy Mein Kampf. Any kind of reference to Nazism is basically prohibited. You know, the swastika is a prohibited symbol, and there are differing schools of thought on how good or bad that is. I'm not convinced that trying to cover up that past is a good thing. They don't cover it up necessarily. You can read about it. They still have the concentration camps. I believe you can still go to Auschwitz as sort of a tourist destination and see the camps as they sort of existed back then. They haven't really changed them much since then. But trying to cover up that history I'm not sure that that's actually a good thing. That's actually kind of a restriction on freedom of speech. And again, I can understand why Germany has done that, but I'm not sure that I agree with that. Russia has refused to do the same thing. You still see the hammer and the sickle, that classical symbol of communism around here, and mostly it's just displayed jokingly or as sort of a kind of a half nostalgic sort of reminiscing about the past, about the Soviet times. But it's not a prohibited symbol like the swastika is in Germany. Any kind of picture, its references to Stalin or Stalinism are not prohibited. They're not, I don't think people are too much in favor of it, but it's not something that's censored at all. So, by comparison, Russia is actually pretty good about censorship. They haven't tried to cover up any of these things. And Lenin is still seen as a good guy. Stalin is pretty much acknowledged as the monster that he was, but if you go to like the subway, you go to a subway station and there are still monuments to Lenin there. So they appreciate. Russians appreciate their history, and they see the communist revolution as exactly what it was, kind of an idea with good intentions that obviously went awry, which is pretty much, I think, what most people could agree is what it was. It was built on good intentions, and maybe got off to kind of a good start with the first pioneers in like the early 20th century, and then kind of went down from there. But anyhow, so again, I don't feel like I'm that oppressed here. I don't feel like my rights are being compromised, or like somebody's always watching me or listening to me here in Russia. It isn't that way. And some people might say, well, that's Russia today. Russia 20 years ago would have been different. And okay, that's a fair statement to make. I mean, yeah, Russia 20 years ago was different, but I'm just using Russia as an example because that's where I happen to be, and I've been here for a while, so I've seen some of it. But what about any other major European country? I mean, what about France? What do we as Americans enjoy in terms of freedoms that you couldn't do in France or Germany, besides make reference to Nazism, or Sweden or Finland? What can you do in America that you couldn't do in Finland? So and I'm seriously asking, this isn't a rhetorical question. I'm looking for kind of perspective and answers from people who are Americans or Canadians and who consider themselves to be in an especially free society and an especially privileged society because of the freedoms that it affords. So I'd appreciate your folks' feedback. And I'd like to ask everyone to not rely on grandstanding or kind of propaganda phrases. And what I mean by that is, don't just say, well, America was built on freedom or something like that. I know, we all know that America was built because we were oppressed by the British, and then, we've built new colonies here, and then we fought for freedom from the British. Yeah, okay, we all know that history, but that was hundreds of years ago. I'm talking today. I'm talking about America as it is today in relation to the rest of the world. And, it doesn't seem to me that there's really that much difference. You know that many American states still have blasphemy laws. Not federally. I'm pretty sure there's no federal law against it, but several states still have laws against blasphemy. And that's kind of a restriction on freedom of speech. And they're not enforced. The thing about these laws is they have not, nobody's been charged under them for a very long time. A lot of them have remained in the law books. And so, people, nobody uses them, but the laws are still there, which seems to me like it's actually kind of a violation of the rule of law. And by the rule of law, I mean simply the idea that that people are judged according to a written law, and that it's not just up to some judge to say, I like this guy, so I'll let him go, or I don't have a good feeling about this person, so I'll send him to jail for 10 years. That's that's judgment based on whim. And the rule of law is a key idea in modern democratic society. It's the idea that people are judged based on a standard written law that applies to everyone and isn't just based on personal judgments, even though that's also not kind of true, because even so, a judge in a courtroom is still relatively free to say yes or no, or a jury, if it's a jury doing the judgment. And there are certain limits. The law places certain restrictions on what a judge can and cannot do, but there's still kind of that. So really in Canada or the US, you're still kind of at the whim and at the mercy of that judge's individual perception or whim, again, I guess you could say. So really, and that's kind of how it is here in Europe too. People complain. I've heard it complained that that Europeans judge morality more, that in Europe there's more the idea that if you're a good person, whatever that means, then you might get away with something, whereas if you're a bad person, then they might be unfairly biased against you. But the same is true in North America. If you have, if you have a personal history of, alcoholism or drug abuse or something like that, they might give you a harsher sentence for a completely unrelated crime simply because of your character history. And vice versa. If you've led a very clean life, you might get a lighter sentence for a crime just because of the life you've lived. And that's not, as far as I know, that's not written in the law books. That's just how they judge you. So, So this idea of the rule of law is not really practiced even in these supposedly free societies. So, all right. So that's enough from me, I think. Again, I really want to ask you folks what you think. Everybody's free to comment. All kinds of comments are welcome. I won't censor your responses. I do believe in freedom of speech. And obviously I'm most looking for perspective from North Americans. But if you're from a European country, like, if you're from Germany or, one of these Nordic countries, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Iceland, wherever, or anywhere else, you're certainly welcome to comment and lend your opinion. I'd really like to hear what you folks have to say, get a little bit of perspective. All right, I'll probably post a response video sometime later, and maybe a couple of weeks after I've had some time to think about it and read your responses. So thank you for watching, everyone. I look forward to your responses, and I hope everyone's doing well. Keep on rocking in the free world. I'll see you folks later. Bye for now.